to return to open session.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Thank you. Welcome to the October 16th, 2014 meeting of... Hi, Betty. How are you? 2014 meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Trustees. To begin our meeting, we're going to do the most important thing here tonight, and that's the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Oh, I don't see.
I move to adopt tonight's agenda.
Second. Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Thank you. We have a public hearing here on a easy for me to say, community, thank you. I used to be young and innocent. Community Development Block Grant Program. Steve?
Good evening. We do have public hearings. This is the second of two hearings that we have for the township proposed application for Community Development Block Grant Fund. We had one last Thursday afternoon that staff facilitated, and we have one here before the board tonight. Basically, the process works. The Community Development Block Grant Program, or CDBG, as we refer to it as, is issued on a 3-year basis. This is the next cycle that will start fiscal year 2015 through 2017. The township is a participant in the Hamilton County CDBG program, and we are invited to submit projects for consideration. As part of that process, we have to hold 2 public hearings, such as the one this evening. And there are various requirements set forth as to what projects are eligible. There is a flyer out on the table signed in indicating the eligible activities or potential eligible activities. Going through this project and potential projects for the township, we've identified 3 that we are moving forward or we'd like consideration on by the board. The first of which is for the local share of the Wolfangle Road Sidewalk Project. This entails the construction of a new sidewalk from Bowen Street north to State Road. The township received grant funding from OKI several years ago, and we're in engineering right now. This is a project we hope to build in 2016. And again, it would link up the area right. This is Bowen Street right here. This is the rear access, east access to the Anderson Town Center. We go north to State Road to connect to the sidewalks on State Road, and also the sidewalks that currently exist and will be rebuilt as part of the improvement on Wolfangle with private development in the vicinity. So it's for the local share of that project, which is currently the township's responsibility. The second project we have for consideration is the Senior Center Restroom Project. This is at the Anderson Township Senior Center. And I should mention the first project is eligible based upon its service to senior housing, which is identified as one of the eligible activities. Both the commons of Anderson and Anderson Green are very high density with folks that are 65 and older for the census, so they qualify in that area based upon geography. The second criteria is the same. This is for service to the senior center, and essentially what we're looking at is the reconfiguration of the existing room and closet area to allow for construction of shower and restroom facilities. This could potentially allow for the provision of adult daycare in the facility. And this is the senior center in the area that we're looking at. There are 2 rooms that are off this common room. This is where the 5 members is formerly stored, but the intent is to convert that area to a facility that would be able to house such a service at the senior center, one that we feel is needed in the community. The third area is blight prevention, and this is an area, the project scope, as you see there, is for acquisition of properties that are in a low or moderate income area, and the township is looking at third bullet, 3 different project areas. One would be in the Elston Road area down here. This is next to Remke along Beachmont Avenue. The second area is in the YMCA, the Old Fort area, which is to the north and east of Newtown, back towards Little Miami Golf Center. And the third area referred to as the YMCA area off of Round Bottom Road near Broadway. Okay, those are the 3 projects. There are approximately, based on past awards, the township's received anywhere from $75,000 to $100,000 a year. Each of those projects is in that general average of fewer higher, fewer lower. But those are the 3 projects that staff is suggesting that we advance. If there's any questions of the board, I'll be happy to answer those at this point in time. Otherwise, it's a public hearing, so there may be folks that read about it on our website or Facebook page or the legal ad or check out the Inquirer that we're required to do, or just happen to be here this evening and may have questions, and I'm happy to try to address those at this time.
Steve, I would like to remind everyone that the CDBG grants do not have any ties to Section 8 housing. While they attempted a number of years ago, as part of these 3-year cycles, to try to force governments like ourselves to request that they bring Section 8 housing into the community, they found that that was not a workable proposal, and that there is nothing related to that in this application.
There's not.
Good. Important. Yes. Okay. I know we have a cast of thousands here, everyone wanting to come forward and address this topic, so if anyone would like to address the board, either in favor of or in opposition to this application, please come forward now. If not, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. There is an action item that you have in your board packet. We'd like to consider that at this point in time to allow staff to proceed with those applications so that we can submit those by the February deadline.
I move to authorize the Township Administrator to submit the following projects to the Hamilton County Community Development Department for Community Development Block Grant funding: Wolfangle Road sidewalks, senior center upgrades, and acquisition of blighted property.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Now we have are we done? There you
Think
go.
so.
A presentation
We do have
and recognition.
and a recognition all in one.
There you go.
I'd like to ask Betty Cowan to come up, our office manager, and I'm going to recognize Betty on behalf of Paul Drury, our planning and zoning director, who could not be here this evening, but I feel like it's my honor as well, because Betty and I have worked together my entire 14 years here with the township. I'd like to recognize Betty for her 25 years of service to the township. I'm going to just read a few comments for those that may not be familiar with Betty. I'll just go through Paul's memo because I think it's pretty appropriate for the service that she's provided. Betty started as a secretary for the zoning department in 1989, soon after zoning was established in the township. And for those that aren't aware, our days were not quite as nice as they are today. We were in a trailer next to the cell tower in the operations center parking lot at that point in time. But Betty and Barb and a few others endured those confines for several years. But with our move into a more permanent facility on the second floor of that building, Betty became the face to most folks coming into the zoning department at that point in time. Her desk was right there at the counter for probably 12 years, I think, until I moved here to Anderson Center in 2008. And since that time, Betty's role has continued to evolve from the front desk person to what is today our office manager. Betty does everything that anybody could ask of her to do. In the office manager role, as you know, that's a key part of our community, it's a key part of the township. But whether it's plugging in at the front desk, whether it's plugging in the zoning counter, whether it's handling IT, Betty's now our co-conspirator with Facebook, and the website as far as getting information out there. She does everything that's asked, and I truly want to thank her for her service, and I know the rest of the department staff and those that work with Betty echo those same sentiments. So, Betty, thank you for your service, and we look forward to the next 25 years.
Thank you, Betty. You left out the part, Steve, where you left out the part where she started when she was 6.
Yes. I mentioned the next 25 years.
There you go. Thank you, Betty. Next on the agenda is a legislative update. I see State Representative Stoutberg is here, chomping at the bit to come forward and telling us all the things that may happen.
Work my way through the cast of thousands. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Thank you all for having me again tonight. We are still not in session. We're still on our summer break, even though we're getting deeper in the fall. But we will go back, I think, the week actually following the election and swing into a lame duck session that's going to be incredibly busy. So hold on tight. Hopefully everything that comes out will be good and promising. We'll be very busy doing various tasks, and we have our own agenda items to get through this Senate as well. So I really have nothing, except I'd like to speak for 2 seconds on this Ebola issue. When I left home yesterday, I went to Massillon, Ohio, thinking everything's great, and then you hear slowly the dripping of the news that this person has Ebola, and then a year later in the afternoon that she actually flew out of Cleveland, and it just got worse and worse throughout the day. The governor, I think, appropriately immediately got all his people together to address the situation, and they put out protocol, which is stricter than what the federal CDC has, and all the way from 21-day quarantine, no phone ground if you touch somebody who's infected, kind of the typical temperature taking, whatever. But we don't think it can happen here, but that's what Cleveland was thinking, 2 days ago. So hopefully we'll look back and it's a little overkill, except we just don't know. There is a 1-866 number for everyone. If there's any questions, if you're a family up in Cleveland, it's 866-800-1404. And that's the Ohio Department of Health's hotline. I think it's more than just a hotline, it's a regular number. So they're probably not quite equipped to handle the inputs and calls they're probably getting, but that is what they've got out there. So again, hopefully it's all something we'll back on and certainly not laugh, but breathe a sigh of relief. But until we do the same thing. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you,
Okay.
Peter. Thank you very much. Hey, Peter, I would remind you to remember that Vito Corleone was quarantined for like 6 weeks when he came here, so what's wrong with that?
There you go. There you go. Only 1 day is all there is. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. At every meeting, the board sets aside time for a public forum. If anyone wishes to address this board, please come forward. We ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes, and please state your name and address for the record. So if anyone would like to address the board, please come forward here or there or wherever. I think Randy is thinking about coming forward.
My name is Randy Smith. I live at 7493 Pinehurst Drive, and I am I'm a member of the Board of Education of the Forest Hill School District. I'm here this evening to address the trustees in this body about the bond issue that we have on the ballot this November. As most of you probably are aware, we do have a 4.9 mil levy, a bond issue. Actually, it's a combination of bond issue and permanent improvement levy. The bond issue is designed to be able to renovate all of our buildings, with one exception, that's Wilson, which we would be replacing. It's more cost effective to replace it than renovate it. As some of you may know, we actually have not done any improvements or renovations on our buildings in about 20 years since Nagel was built. And we've done maintenance projects, routine type maintenance and roofs, HVAC, that type of thing, but have not actually done any major upgrades to our buildings in 20 years. Another thing that most people are not aware, all of our buildings are either at capacity or over capacity with one exception. Quite frankly, we're renting trailers at 2 of our buildings. So what we are looking to do is raise funds to make safety and security fixes. Most of our buildings were built in either the 60s or 70s, and quite frankly, safety and security then was not what it is today. Also, a number of buildings are not air conditioned, but the solution then was just keep the doors open. Well, for safety and security reasons, we can't do that. We will also be upgrading technology, some of the mandates from the states as far as testing. We're not quite up to snuff when it comes to our technology capacity, so that needs to be taken care of. A big area is learning areas, 21st century learning capacity and room for that. And so that's essentially what that will go for. The permanent improvement levy is money that would be used for maintenance, to maintain the buildings. We do not have a permanent improvement levy on. We've been paying for maintenance primarily out of interest that we have earned on funds that the district accrues over a levy cycle. As everybody in here knows, interest rates right now are real close to zero. And so we've been fiscally responsible over the years, but at this point, we need to do something to raise the funds to be able to maintain the buildings. I really believe that this is a fiscally responsible plan. Unlike some school districts that simply knock down buildings and build new, we've got, most of our frames are perfectly good, and renovating them is a much more fiscally responsible way to go about this than simply tearing down and building new. The board looked at a number of different options. One of them was do nothing, but quite frankly, that will cost our taxpayers more in the long run than it would be to act now. Interest rates are low, they're only going to go up. The economy of scale of doing all these at once at this point in time is in our benefit. By bidding all these projects out at the same time, we will benefit from that. We learned from the last levy we had, we're not borrowing long-term money to do short-term fixes. Another thing is this is a comprehensive plan. Quite frankly, it's the first comprehensive plan we've had in 20 years. It does touch every part of the community. We did some research. Some of you know I work for P&G, and we don't do anything without market research. And the program that we're proposing, actually, if we're able to get the word out and educate voters, does have a good chance of passing. 59% of the people in our survey indicated they were supportive of the plan that we're putting on the ballot. We looked at some other plans that were, quite frankly, much more expensive, and those did not get community support. Another thing this does is preserve our community schools. That was something that we learned that our community does want to preserve. There's discussion about consolidation. One of the plans we looked at would consolidate to 4 elementaries, although that is much more costly, and the cost savings does not outweigh the amount of money it would have taken to get us to the 4 elementaries. So what we're doing is actually a much more fiscally responsible idea. Every once in a while, there's discussion of combining the 2 high schools, again, with the idea of economy, cost savings. The investment that it would take to build, to tear down, or close Turpin, tear down Anderson, and build a mega high school is way more than the cost savings we would ever get. I think a conservative estimate was 75 years before we saw any savings, and in some calculations, you never get there. So those were considered, but quite frankly, again, trying to do the fiscally responsible thing, that's not what we're doing. We put the program on that does meet the needs of the community. Again, I think the safety and security is important. Also, the economic investment of a $100 million plan for our community is really important. So, just to summarize, we are doing something that will essentially raise all of our buildings up to, renovate to new standards, deliver the technology that we need, importantly, deliver the safety and security that's absolutely needed in a lot of our buildings. And so with that, I would simply, I'm not asking this body for support as a body, but I certainly would ask individually for your support. And I think it's really important for people to understand what the program is all about, because I think when you peel back the onion a little bit to see what we're proposing, it's kind of the sweet spot of the plans for our taxpayers, our students, for our whole community. So it will cost about, I think it's $14 and some change per 100,000 per month for our property value. But in the long run, when you think about preserving our property values of all of our homes and those who live here, it's probably a good bet. So again, I would ask for your support, and if anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to try and answer them.
Thank you for coming, Randy.
Sure. I know you guys have heard much of this story before, but I did appreciate the opportunity to come and share here.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
Would anyone else like to address this board? If not, I'll close the public forum and move on to trustee comments. Mr. Girth?
No, although I do have a card, a thank you card from the League of Women Voters who held a form here the other day. I don't know if Andrew got to read it yet.
I didn't get the card, but thank you.
It was the same, it was a joint card.
I'll read it here shortly.
That's your comment?
That's all I have.
Just on what Randy said, I just wanted to thank the school board. I was able to attend a lot of the open forums that they had, and I just want to say I think they did a great job trying to reach out and inform the community with all the meetings they had. It was, so I just wanted to thank them for trying to get as much input as they can.
Well, I agree with that. They at least made an effort to educate people on what they were doing. That was very much a plus. Good, thank you. Fiscal Officer, Mr. Ken Dietz.
Thank you. The financial reports at the end of September, expenses less than what was budgeted by a nice little percentage of 7%. The revenues are more than we had in our budget plan, so they're slightly more than what we had anticipated, which is always a good thing. So, no appropriation changes this evening. You have before you a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. And all that is the second page shows you what the full millage of all the levies that have been in effect over the years, passed over the years, would generate. Now, as we know, the levies that were passed, most of them are subject to the discount factor. As the appraisal values go up, then unfortunately our rates go down. We do have an exception to that. We have our 2 mil inside, which is not affected by that. It looks to me like the county based the revenues on values that are comparable to what they were in 2013 tax year. They are usually conservative. They actually reduce them by a few percentage points. But as you know, the reappraisal is coming up, so we're hoping that we're going to get a little bit of boost there. And of course, what that would do would take our 2 mills that is inside millage and generate some more dollars. So that's what we're hoping for. The values are not out for the new reappraisal. They should be out in another 4 to 6 weeks, according to the county auditor. So the hope is that they will be 5 to 10% higher. I don't know if I'm being ambitious or not, but some of the indicators are that. So I would need your approval for the resolution accepting amounts and rates.
Do we have a motion?
I move to accept the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
A few months ago during the summer, we hit our 2-year audit for the tax, or the calendar years, 2012 and 2013. Plattenberg CPAs were those that audited us. As we know, the state examiner does not have the resources to do it on their own anymore. I feel like we had a good team from Plattenberg. They came in, they were here for about 2 weeks. I have to commend my fiscal office staff, our administration, for working with them. It was a very pleasant experience. Only a couple things came up which were rectified, and as a result of that, they issued their audit report, which, in talking to them today and also talking to the state examiner's office, indicated that we have a clean audit. They felt like there was nothing wrong. There were no findings, there was no management report, no recommendations or anything. So as our dear friend Fred Kuehl used to say, we had a clean audit, and we should be proud of that.
Good.
That's great, Ken. This is the second time in a row, right?
Every time.
Every time in a row, yeah. Well, you didn't even have...
We're not going to get that, we're not going to get that award, though,
Yeah.
because you have to have we have a gap lookalike statement that they
Yeah,
prepare
they don't-
for us.
they don't like that.
We do not do gap, and I don't think we want to. I don't think we want to go through that aggravation.
Anyway, thank you to you, and thanks to your staff. That's a great job.
Yeah, nice work, Ken.
Thank you.
That it?
That's it.
Thank you. We have several different sets of minutes. We're going to do one separately, and then we'll do the others together. Do we have a motion to the August 7th
I move to approve the minutes for our August 7, 2014 meeting.
with minor edits?
Minor edits.
Second?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Abstain?
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
I wanted to do that first.
Sorry.
Beat me to it. I move to approve the minutes for the August 21st, 2014 minutes, August 22nd, 2014 minutes, September 4th, 2014 minutes, and September 18th, 2014 minutes.
With minor
Minor
edits.
edits.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Thank you. Law Director, Margaret Comey.
I just wanted to remind you that the annual information statement that you all approved and authorized in September was in fact filed with the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board's electronic depository, and the audits that have just been released were also filed. And both of those are required under your continuing disclosure agreement for your outstanding bonds. Very important to get that done.
Thank you, Margaret. Planning and zoning, we have the pleasure of having Tom Caruso here. Tom,
Yes, there's nothing to offer from planning and zoning for this
you
meeting.
want to get up and get on camera first? There you go.
Nothing,
I have
nothing for this meeting
I
from
have
planning and zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff's Office, Sergeant Kevin Bly.
Sergeant Kevin Bly with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department. We have nothing on the agenda for tonight.
How's the report on that lady that was hit?
I talked to her sister today at the district, and she was being released today,
Good.
so,
Amazing. She's very lucky.
yes.
Whoa. Thank you. Public Works Department, Richard Shelley.
Good evening. I have two items before the board tonight. The first one is a request for the board to set a public hearing as a requirement of a new lighting district. After the petition has been accepted and signatures have been checked, the board is to set a public hearing. I am then required to notify the members of that district by letter prior to 14 days of the hearing being set so that they may attend at the next open board meeting to either stand in favor or oppose the lighting district. What you have before you is the resolution that allows me to do that.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, I move to set a public hearing for St. James Park Lighting District at 6 p.m. on November 20th, 2014.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now the one I'm looking forward to.
The one you're looking forward to. Mr. Jackson is probably the only one that on the board that's familiar with these at this point, but on a yearly basis, we are required under statute to take a vote from the board to allow us to plow undedicated streets or streets that are still under construction in subdivisions. Typically, the developer takes care of those streets. On occasion, though, there's problems where they can't, they don't, whatever the case is. This resolution allows my staff to work off of public right-of-way by this resolution to plow snow on an emergency basis. The kind of the joke on this was in the past we had to do these on a monthly basis through the winter, and now they've gotten them to where we can just do them once a year. But what you had before you is a resolution that would allow us to work off right-of-way to plow an emergency situation, and it sets the rate at which we were to charge should we have to do that.
Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt a resolution declaring an emergency for snow removal on unaccepted roads.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much. Fire and Rescue Department, Chief Mark Ober.
I have nothing to report.
If you had that pink shirt on, you'd be up there, I know.
You're not going to forget that.
Township Administrator, Vicki Earhart.
Mr. Severs has the first two items to present to the board this evening.
I do have more to report. First item I have is in relation to a project that is being submitted by the road company for the expansion of the store. We've been through that area in the recent weeks. You've seen their preliminary steps. The zone change application has been filed. Part of that zone change application entails a proposal to the township for us to vacate Town Center Way or a portion thereof. This will be the area on Town Center Way between Beachmont Avenue, going north several hundred feet to just north of Bowen Street. The first step in the process is for the township to initiate that vacation, and ultimately there'll be a public hearing before the Board of County Commissioners and ultimately back here as well. But this is the first step. So this doesn't support the current plan in its current shape. It just starts the ball rolling, and we would appreciate your support moving forward.
Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt a resolution directing Township Administrator to forward notice requesting the vacation of a portion of Town Center Way.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
In addition to those walking, these plans are available on our website and the news section, so folks can get an idea of what's being proposed. And that first public hearing for that zone change at the township level will be on Monday, November 25th at 5:30 this year. Second I have is pertaining to our communications consultant. As I alluded to earlier, when we were recognizing Ms. Cowan, another key person in our outreach efforts is Nancy Kane. She has served as our communications coordinator for several years, and we have a motion for the board to modify that agreement for the balance of 14 and to extend that through 2015.
I move to authorize the extension of the continuing consultant role of Nancy Kane as communications consultant for a total not to exceed $30,000 in 2015, and to amend Resolution 13-1107-07 to increase the annual maximum for 2014 by $5,000.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Pappas? Sorry, Mr.
Yes.
Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you. As Mr. Smith alluded to earlier, the interest rates are much lower now than they have been in quite some time. And with that, the township is exploring refunding of its 2007 general obligation bonds in order to capture that lower interest rate. In order to get that process moving forward, there is a resolution before the board that would retain Squire Patton and Boggs as bond counsel for the township. And Mr. Todd Cooper with the firm is present if the board would have any questions related to the motion before you.
Any questions?
No.
Thank you, Todd. Good job.
Thanks for coming.
Yes, we ought to have a
resolution.
Yes, give me a second. I move to authorize the Township Administrator to sign an engagement letter on behalf of the Anderson Township Board of Township Trustees with the firm of Squire Patton Boggs LLP with respect to the retention of that firm as bond counsel for the township and determining that the compensation and other terms of appointment are fair and reasonable to the township.
Second.
The full resolution before you, which is contained in that information.
Okay.
Is that correct? The board's comfortable with that resolution that was prepared by council?
Tell us again. I don't know.
There was originally a motion in the packet,
Right.
and then we moved to the
You
full
wanted to go to the
resolution. Correct.
So, are we better served going to the resolution?
Yes.
Not voting on the other?
Yes, sir.
If you would withdraw your motion.
I withdraw now my motion.
Yeah, there you go.
Second.
Second.
Second to the withdrawal.
Here
We have to vote on that? We didn't vote on?
No, there was no vote.
Okay.
You want to try again?
I'll try now that I have the right one.
You have to read the whole thing.
No, there's no way. I'd like to move to adopt a resolution and order employing attorneys for particular matters.
Second.
As detailed.
It's detailed in,
Any discussion? Thank you, Todd.
Mr. Pappas?
not anymore. Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item,
Make it too complicated.
You replaced one with...
it's those supplemental packets, I apologize for that.
There you go.
The next item, Bruce Burno is a very active member in Anderson Township. He is a member of our Street Tree Committee, and he and his wife actually provide funding for a program called Trees in Gratitude. It is an independent philanthropic agency that was launched in 2012 to increase gratitude in the community, to plant large shade trees on nonprofit parcels where the nonprofit organization maybe doesn't have the money to purchase those large shade trees, and to beautify the community and to benefit the community. This year, Mr. Burno is proposing 2 donations in Anderson Township, the first of which is a donation of trees in the amount of over $3,500 for the Coalition to Save Hillcrest Cemetery, which is located on Sutton, and that is a nonprofit organization, and they will accept that donation separately. But there's also a donation of trees for Asbury Cemetery, which is a township-owned cemetery on Forest Road. So before the board this evening is a resolution that would accept the donation of the trees for the Asbury Cemetery. The donation includes not only the large shade trees, but the planting and deer protection and care of those trees.
That's great.
Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt the resolution authorizing acceptance of donation from the Trees in Gratitude funded by the Karen M. and Bruce J. Burno Fund of the Greater Cincinnati Foundation.
Second.
Discussion?
Just to comment how
Travis?
wonderful it is.
Yes,
So,
please.
yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll make sure that the Burnos receive a copy of the resolution and a letter on behalf of the board thanking them for that donation.
Very generous.
The last item is an item resulting as from executive session discussions with regard to property acquisition. There is a motion before the board.
No, 2. Tab 2.
I move to authorize the Township Administrator to enter into a purchase and sale agreement for properties not to exceed $37,000 and to authorize an additional expenditure of up to $20,000 for demolition and site cleanup due diligence activities, including but not limited to an environmental assessment and site survey, and legal fees using Anderson Township TIF or Community Development Block Grant funds.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all we have for the board this evening.
Thanks, Vicki.
Thank you. That was semi-painless, right? I would remind you that our next regular monthly board meeting is scheduled for November 20th, 2014, 6 p.m. If you have any questions, please call 688-8400. And with that, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks for coming.